My phone buzzed at 2:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I've been lying awake anyway, the way I do most nights since my wife passed. The bedroom gets too quiet after a certain hour. I reached for it expecting nothing. Spam, maybe a weather alert. It was my daughter. One text. 3 words. Dad, please come. I was already sitting up. I called her back immediately and it rang 4 times before she picked up, and when she did, I almost didn't recognize her voice. She was whispering. The kind of whisper that isn't about being quiet. It's about not having anything left. Dad, she said, I need you to come get me. Don't call anyone, just come. Lily. I was already standing, already looking for my shoes in the dark. Baby, where are you? I'm at the house, Marcus's parents' house. I can't talk loud. Please hurry. The line went dead. I didn't ask questions. I didn't call anyone. I grabbed my keys off the hook by the garage door, and I drove. My daughter Lily is 31 years old. She married Marcus Whitfield 2 years ago at a small ceremony in Asheville, North Carolina, where his family is from. I drove 9 hours to be there. I stood in the front row in a suit I'd had dry cleaned twice because I kept spilling coffee on it from nerves. I cried when she walked down the aisle. I'm not ashamed of that. Marcus seemed fine to me then. Quiet. Polite in the distant way that some young men are polite to their girlfriend's father, like they're performing a role they've rehearsed. His mother, Beverly Whitfield, stood at the reception and told me 3 times how the Whitfields had been in Buncombe County for 4 generations. I smiled and nodded and ate my chicken and thought nothing of it. I am a retired electrician from Knoxville, Tennessee. I worked 34 years, put 2 kids through college, paid off my house. I don't have 4 generations of anything except stubbornness and a bad back. Beverly made sure I understood the difference between her family and mine without ever saying it out loud. That's a skill, I'll give her that. After the wedding, Lily and Marcus settled in Asheville, 40 minutes from his parents. She kept teaching 2nd grade. He worked at the family's commercial real estate business. Things seemed okay. She called me every Sunday. I drove up for Thanksgiving last year and Marcus was pleasant enough and Beverly barely looked at me across the dinner table, which was fine. I ate her sweet potato casserole and drove home. But somewhere in those 2 years, the Sunday calls got shorter. Then they got further apart. The last time I'd seen Lily in person was 4 months ago, at her cousin's birthday party. She looked thin. Tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. When I asked her about it, she said work had been stressful. I wanted to push. I didn't push. I should have pushed. The Whitfield house is on the north end of Asheville, up in the hills, the kind of neighborhood where the driveways are long and the porch lights stay on all night. I pulled in at 4:15 in the morning. Every window was dark except one, upstairs, on the right side of the house. I could see the light around the edges of a curtain. I walked up to the front door and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. The porch light came on. The door opened 4 inches, stopped by a chain, and Beverly Whitfield looked out at me in a silk robe with an expression like I'd tracked mud across her entry hall just by existing. "Do you know what time it is?" she said. It wasn't a question. "My daughter called me," I said. "I need to see her." "Lily is asleep. She called me 2 hours ago and asked me to come. I need to see that she's all right." Beverly looked at me the way she looked at me across that Thanksgiving table. Patient. Certain. Like she was the only adult in a room full of children. "Lily has been struggling lately," she said. "She's under a doctor's care. The best thing for her right now is rest, and the last thing she needs is disruption from her father. From unnecessary stress." I stood there on that porch in the cold and I made myself breathe. I'm 63 years old. I've been in tight spots. I've had supervisors scream at me on job sites. I've dealt with subcontractors who tried to cheat me. I've buried my wife. I know how to stay calm when everything in me wants to do something else. "Beverly," I said, "I am not leaving this porch until I see my daughter. You can let me in, or you can call the police, and when they get here, I will show them the text message she sent me at 2:37 this morning asking me to come get her. Either way, I'm not moving." She stared at me. "You don't want to do this." "I'm already doing it." The door closed. I heard voices inside. Beverly's, then a man's lower. Marcus's father, I assumed. I stood on that porch for 11 minutes. I counted. Then the door opened again, all the way this time, and Beverly stood back and let me in. The house was enormous in the way that old Carolina money tends to be. High ceilings, dark wood, the kind of furniture that looks like it hasn't been touched since 1987. Beverly led me toward the stairs without a word. Marcus's father, a tall man named Gerald, stood at the bottom of them and watched me with his arms crossed. "She's been having episodes," Gerald said. "Anxiety. The doctor has her on something new. She gets confused at night." "She sounded pretty clear to me," I said. He didn't answer. Lily's room was at the end of the upstairs hall. Beverly knocked once, opened the door, and stepped aside. My daughter was sitting on the edge of a bed in what looked like a guest room. Not the master bedroom, not a room that belonged to her and Marcus. A guest room. She was wearing a sweater I'd given her 2 Christmases ago, and her hair was pulled back, and her face looked like she hadn't slept in a week. There was a bruise on her left forearm, pale yellow-green. The kind that's a week old. The kind that's already fading. She looked up at me and her eyes went wide and she said, "Dad." And then she was crying and I was across that room in 3 steps, and I had my arms around her before I'd made any decision to move at all. "I've got you," I said. It's what I used to say when she was little and had bad dreams. "I've got you. You're okay. I'm right here." She held on to me and shook and didn't say anything for a long time. Behind me, Beverly said, "You see? She's fine. She just gets overwhelmed. The doctor thinks." "I'm going to need a minute alone with my daughter," I said. I didn't turn around. I didn't raise my voice. I just said it. There was a pause. Then I heard footsteps and the door didn't close all the way, but they moved back down the hall. I sat down next to Lily on that bed, and I held her hand, and I asked her to tell me. She told me. It had started, she said, about 8 months in. Small things at first. Marcus making comments about her spending. She bought new classroom supplies with her own paycheck, and he asked why she hadn't cleared it with him first. Her credit card started getting declined. She found out later he'd lowered the limits without telling her. He monitored her phone, not obviously, not with some app she could find. Just questions, careful ones, about where she'd been, who she'd talked to, why she'd called her friend in Nashville 3 times in 1 week. His mother was always there. That was the thing Lily kept coming back to. Beverly was always there, dropping by, calling Marcus's cell to check in, organizing family dinners that Lily was expected to attend and expected to be grateful for. When Lily tried to talk to Marcus about needing more space, Beverly somehow knew about it by the next morning. The bruise on her arm. She said they'd argued the week before about Lily wanting to visit me in Knoxville for my birthday. Marcus had grabbed her arm when she tried to walk away from the argument. He hadn't hit her. He just held her there with his hand long enough that she understood she wasn't going anywhere. She'd gone to the school counselor 2 weeks ago and said she thought she might be in a bad situation at home. The counselor had given her a hotline number. That night, Marcus told her the school had called him. His family made substantial donations to the district. The next day, he'd driven her to his family's house, said she needed rest, said she'd been not herself lately. Beverly had taken her phone charger. Lily had been there for 6 days. She'd charged her phone in secret using the outlet behind the guest room nightstand. She'd waited until 2 a.m. when the house was quiet. And she'd texted me. I sat there and I let her talk, and I did not let my face show what was happening inside me. When she finished, I said, "Do you want to leave?" "Yes." "Then we're leaving." They'll. We're leaving, Lily." I walked back out into that hallway with my daughter behind me and Beverly was standing right there, like she'd been listening through the gap in the door, which she probably had. "Lily needs to rest," Beverly said. "Her doctor specifically." "What's the doctor's name?" I said. She paused. "I beg your pardon?" "Her doctor. The one who prescribed the medication, who recommended rest. What's the name?" "That's really not." "Is she being held here voluntarily?" I kept my voice even. "Because if she is, she can tell me that herself, and I'll go." "Lily." I looked at my daughter. "Do you want to stay?" "No," Lily said. Her voice was quiet, but it was steady. "I want to go with my dad." Beverly stepped toward the staircase, spreading herself across it, the way people do when they want to seem immovable. "You don't understand the full picture. Lily has been volatile. She's been saying things that aren't true. She's been." "Step aside, Beverly." Gerald appeared at the bottom of the stairs. "I think you should calm down." "I am calm." My daughter is a grown woman and she wants to leave with her father. That's what's going to happen. If either of you tries to physically prevent her from walking out that door, I will call 911 and you can explain to the Asheville Police Department why a 31-year-old woman isn't permitted to leave a private residence. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone realizes the script they've been using doesn't work on this particular person. Gerald stepped back. Beverly didn't move for a long moment, and then she looked at Lily with an expression I still think about. Not angry, not afraid, but calculating, like she was filing something away for later. Then she moved aside. I put my hand on Lily's back, and we walked down those stairs and out the front door. I drove us to a Hampton Inn on the interstate. I wasn't going to drive 9 hours back to Knoxville in the dark, with both of us running on no sleep and pure adrenaline. I got us a room with 2 beds. I made Lily drink a bottle of water and eat the granola bar I found in my jacket pocket that was probably 3 months old, and she ate it without complaint, which told me how hungry she'd been. She fell asleep within 20 minutes. I sat in the chair by the window and I looked at my phone and I thought about what to do next. Here is what I had: a daughter with a fading bruise on her arm, 6 days of what could legally be described as unlawful restraint, a school counselor who documented a conversation, and a text message she'd sent me at 2047 a.m. from a house she wasn't allowed to leave. Here is what they had: money, local connections, and 4 generations of Buncombe County credibility. I am a retired electrician. I don't have a lawyer on retainer. But I've also spent 34 years solving problems that other people said couldn't be solved. And I know that the first thing you do before you touch a live wire is you make sure you understand exactly what you're working with. At 6 in the morning, I called my son, Lily's older brother. He lives in Charlotte. He's steady in a crisis, gets that from his mother. I told him everything. He was in his car inside of 10 minutes. At 8, I called the non-emergency line for the Asheville Police Department and I told them I had concerns about a domestic situation and asked about the process for filing a report. The officer I spoke to was patient. He explained what I needed. At 9, Lily woke up and we talked for 2 hours. Real talking, the kind we hadn't done in a long time. I didn't push. I let her go at her own pace. She cried twice. I handed her the box of tissues from the nightstand and waited. She said she'd been telling herself for months that she was overreacting, that Beverly was just protective, that Marcus was just stressed about work, that the money stuff was just a disagreement, that the arm grabbing was just once. She'd been keeping a list, she said, in her head, of reasons why it wasn't that bad. That list had gotten very long. It doesn't have to be the worst thing that ever happened to someone, I told her, for you to decide you don't want it to be your life. She looked at me for a long time. How are you so calm? I'm not, I said. I'm just old enough to know that falling apart later is more useful than falling apart now. My son arrived at noon. He brought Lily's friend from Nashville. They'd been close since college, who happened to be a paralegal. She sat with Lily for 3 hours. She made lists. She knew exactly which questions to ask. That afternoon, while Lily was in the shower for the first time in what she said felt like a week, her friend explained to me what our options were. Protective order. Domestic violence documentation. The school counselor's notes were already part of a formal record. The text messages, both the ones Lily had sent me and the ones Marcus had sent her over the past 8 months, which were still on her phone, painted a picture that was hard to argue with. I also learned something I hadn't known. Beverly's involvement wasn't just protective mother behavior. 6 days of keeping an adult woman in a house against her stated wishes, confiscating her means of communication, and telling her it was for her own medical good. Her friend walked me through what that might look like under North Carolina law. I hadn't known the legal term for it, but I'd known what it was the moment I'd stood on that porch. The next several months were not quick or easy. I want to be honest about that, because these things never are, and anyone who's been through something like it knows that the leaving is the beginning, not the end. Lily filed for divorce. Marcus's family hired a firm out of Charlotte, expensive and aggressive. They pushed the narrative that Lily was emotionally unstable, that she'd misrepresented things, that Beverly had been nothing but a concerned mother-in-law acting out of care. But the documentation was there, the school counselor's report, the messages, the financial records Lily's friend helped her pull together showing the account manipulation, and the neighbor, a woman on Beverly Street who'd seen Lily in the window on day 4, and thought something looked wrong, who'd written it in her own diary, who came forward when Lily's lawyer reached out. The protective order was granted. Beverly Whitfield was issued a formal warning. The investigation into the unlawful restraint was closed without charges. These things rarely go further than that, but it was on record. It existed. Marcus did not contest the divorce after the documentation was presented in full. On a Saturday in April, 8 months after that night, I drove up to Asheville again, not to that hillside neighborhood with the long driveways and the porch lights, to a small apartment near the River Arts District, second floor, south-facing windows with good light. Lily had found it herself, negotiated the lease herself, bought the kitchen table at a second-hand shop on Marymount Avenue. I helped her hang curtains. That was the job she'd saved for me. She handed me the rod brackets and the level, and I stood on a step stool, and she stood below me telling me I had it slightly crooked, same as she'd done when she was 8 years old, and I'd been hanging her bedroom curtains in the house in Knoxville. After, we sat at her kitchen table, and she made coffee. Real coffee, not the watery stuff from the hotel, and she looked around her apartment with an expression I hadn't seen on her face in a very long time. "I feel like myself again," she said. I didn't say anything. I just looked at my daughter sitting in her own kitchen, in her own apartment, in her own life, and I thought about a text message at 2:47 in the morning, and about standing on a porch in the dark, and about all the nights between then and now. "That's everything," I said. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, the way she used to when she was little and wanted me to know she was okay. I squeezed back. I didn't let go for a while. I keep coming back to one moment. Not the porch, not the stairs, not even Lily's face when she first looked up and saw me in that doorway. It's the drive home from Asheville, 8 months later, after we hung those curtains. I was somewhere on I-40, the mountains behind me and the Tennessee flatlands opening up ahead, and I realized I was just driving, not gripping the wheel, not running scenarios in my head, just driving the way I used to before any of this happened. I've thought a lot about what made the difference, not in some big philosophical way, just practically. Why did things turn out the way they did, and not some other way? Part of it was simple. Lily texted me. That's where it started. She made one right decision in the middle of a situation that had been slowly teaching her that her own judgment couldn't be trusted. She held on to enough of herself to know she needed help, and she asked for it. That took more courage than anything I did. I just drove. She was the one who had to reach through 6 days of isolation and doubt and exhaustion and press send. What lives in a person that lets them do that? I think that's the most important thing a parent can hope they've given their child. Not money, not connections. Just a quiet belief that they are worth being helped. My part was different. I'd been asked, by my son, by Lily's friend, even by Lily herself, how I stayed calm on that porch. How I didn't lose it when Beverly looked at me like I was an inconvenience, standing between her and her plans. The honest answer is that I'd been wrong before, badly wrong, and I know what losing my head costs. It costs the thing you were trying to protect. You don't get points for how angry you were. You only get the outcome. So I made myself think instead of just react. I thought about what I actually had, what they actually had, and what the next move needed to be. That's not some gift I was born with. That's just what 63 years of making mistakes teaches you, if you're paying attention. And then there was the long part, the months after, the lawyers, the documentation, the days when Lily called me uncertain whether she was doing the right thing, whether she was making it all worse, whether she should just go back. That part required something different from both of us. She had to keep choosing herself, over and over, even when it was exhausting. I had to keep showing up, steadily, without pushing, without taking over. Steady isn't glamorous. Steady doesn't make a good story. But Lily is sitting in her own apartment with south-facing windows because someone was steady. Beverly had money and standing and 4 generations of local credibility. What she didn't account for was that the thing she was trying to contain, a woman who still knew, somewhere deep, that she deserved better, was stronger than all of it. And the things she used to maintain control, isolation, confusion, the appearance of concern. Those things only work in the dark. The moment Lily got 1 bar of signal and pressed send, the whole architecture started coming apart. I don't have a tidy summary for it. Life doesn't really give you those. What I have is a daughter who laughs the way she used to, and a kitchen table where we sit and drink coffee, and the weight of knowing how close it came to going a different direction. That's enough to hold on to.